When the days are cold and the car.
Now we have another drug. It's virtually almost every month that we hear the new story. What is the new drug that's killing our neighbors, that's killing our family members? This month it happens to be something called Pradaxa. I have Roger Denton and Ned McWilliams with me to talk about that topic. Guys, do you see the same story playing out here on Pradaxa, where you have an FDA that is dysfunctional, that's owned and operated by the industry?
Yeah, absolutely right, Pap. This is a situation where you've got bureaucrats overseeing the real doctors and the real scientists here. In this case of Pradaxa, the real scientists and the doctors who looked at the data, who looked at the evidence, they said this drug is not better than as you're touting it to be. It should not get the superiority claim, and that we have questions about the data. But it was the people in the suits who trumped the folks in the lab coats and let them go ahead and sell this drug to our parents and our grandparents as safe and effective when in fact it's not.
Roger, you're in St. Louis. You've handled some of the biggest pharmaceutical cases probably in America out of St. Louis. And I'm wondering, do you see the same pattern here with this case, where they've taken the clinicals, they've lied about the clinicals again, or they have minimized the importance of the clinicals, and they've told people take this drug and everything's going to be okay?
Yeah, Pap, absolutely. And what we're seeing as well is in this particular drug, Pradaxa.
Explain what Pradaxa does.
Well, Pradaxa is a blood thinner. It's used for treatment of various things, including folks with atrial fibrillation or AFib, and it's supposed to thin the blood in a therapeutic way to help prevent blood clots. But what it is doing is, first of all, it gets approved with no oversight, frankly, of what took place in Germany where it was developed. The FDA doesn't go over there. They don't pay any attention. So what gets submitted to the FDA is what the company chooses. And then what we start finding out when it's on the market, it comes on the market in the fall of 2010, and in the first 6 months there's over 500 serious adverse events, including 65 fatalities. It's amazing. In addition to all that, there's no antidote. So when these folks go to the hospital or the emergency rooms, they literally are bleeding to death, and emergency room doctors aren't able to handle it.
Okay, let me talk about that. Now, first of all, there were other blood thinners that are available. I mean, this wasn't even a drug we needed. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. Pap, Coumadin, that most folks have heard about, have been around for more than 50 years. And the safety profile is well known, and the doctors know how to treat people if they happen to have a complication. And there's a relatively simple way to reverse a problem if someone starts having an event. And yet we don't need the drug. So the only reason we need this drug is some German company decides that they want to make a whole bunch of money in our country.
Well, don't we see that? Didn't you just, I mean, virtually, the reason I'm interviewing you is because, I mean, you are one of the key people in this country that handles these huge drug cases. Don't we see it time and time again? I don't know why it's just Europe lately. But well, I think I do. I think Europe has kind of made us into their third world testing ground. They send the product over here because they know that they can game the regulatory system. They can lie to our regulators. They can pay off lobbyists to accomplish anything they want. And so we end up being the experiment, the grand experiment, don't we?
Absolutely. There is absolutely no safety data to speak of done in the clinical work. And they essentially have the United States folks and folks around the world being their guinea pigs.
Ned, how many cases, what was the red flag? I mean, what was the clear red flag to the FDA that says, look, we know, you're being lied to, the gig's up. What kind of numbers did they start seeing early on?
Well, I mean, before the drug was even approved, the scientists that were looking at the data saying this, we don't believe this data. We find this incredible. We just doubt the integrity of this data. But then even once it was approved, like Roger said, as soon as this drug was approved, within the first 12 weeks, I think there was over 500 cases of deaths reported to the FDA. And again, the problem is it's our FDA that's really slow to act, because if you look at this drug isn't just sold in the United States; it's sold around the world. But the FDA is lagging behind the rest of the world in terms of the way they're acting and what they're doing. If you look at Japan, if you look at the European Union, if you look at New Zealand, they're out there. They're warning doctors, they're warning users that you might bleed to death with this drug. But there's no such action taking
Roger,
place in the US.
in your experience doing this, have you seen that other countries are much quicker to take a drug off the market than the United States?
Well, absolutely. First of all, when we look at these cases and these tragedies, we often look to the foreign regulators and foreign scientists because they seem to look into it with appropriate scrutiny, and they're always way ahead of the FDA. And then the other problem in our country is once the FDA approves the drug, there's virtually no mechanism in place to have a drug brought off the market.
Yeah, I can't even think of one. I really can't. Let me ask you, Roger, so they come out in the market and they say we have a drug thinner, but we know there's other drug thinners out there. How did they sell this as one that was superior to the others?
Well, what they do is they have their own clinical trials with their own hand-picked folks, and they try to come up with a reason why it's more superior.
What was their reason? A lot of times it's monitoring, for example.
Well, they claim that on Coumadin that folks have to go visit the doctor on a regular basis to make sure their blood is appropriately in a therapeutic range. And their story here is, well, if you just take 2 pills a day, you never have to go visit your doctor.
So there was in other words, Pradaxa. The Pradaxa people are telling the public ours is better because you don't have to be monitored. We don't have to check your blood level and make sure that you won't bleed to death if you have an episode of some kind. Is that right?
That's right. But what they did was they took perfectly healthy people who were doing fine on Coumadin. And one story that's just incredibly tragic. Someone that we've looked at the medical records. A family, an elderly woman had been on Coumadin for almost 20 years without a problem. They switched her to Pradaxa based upon this marketing by this company. 2 days later, she's in an emergency room with a nosebleed. The doctors try to figure it out, put her on a dialysis machine to try to get the Pradaxa out of her blood. Units and units of blood, and within 48 hours, she's dead.
Oh my God! Okay, guys, look, keep up. It's every week. I'm not. It used to be you would see a story like this occasionally. Now the chickens have come home to roost. The Bush years have come home to roost.